This week I want to introduce you to some of the features of Photoshop that allow you to create your own designs, whether it be for print, web, business cards, flyers, or whatnot. Photoshop can actually create, single page layouts and give you, the tools to create your own designs. Why would you want to create your own designs? Well, sometimes you are in need of a flyer, maybe to promote your business or an event, and you can quickly create a flyer or something like that within Photoshop. Photoshop doesn't just necessarily edit photos, but it also does design layouts as well. And so I'll show you the tools to create this design. So we'll recreate this image right here. And just to point out a few things that we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about using type here, and we're going to talk about integrating photos. We have more text, we have shape layers, we have this background here, which is also a shape layer, and just other kind of visual effects. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. So for what you're going to be doing for your assignment is going to come up with a product or service and recreate that or create a layout for that product or service. And so we'll rebuild this from scratch, and we'll go through each step and each tool, accordingly. So first thing you need to do is create a document to a specific size. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. So under File, New, and it's going to give me the new document window. And let's just assume that we're going to print this. So I'm going to click on Print, and you have some presets here. So what I want to do, and this is specified on your assignment worksheet, is we're going to make an 8-inch wide by 12-inch tall layout. The resolution is going to be 300 pixels per inch, and that just means you're able to print it cleanly without it being pixelated or grainy. And if you decided to print this, you will have enough information to do that. White background doesn't matter. You can leave all this stuff as is. I'm just going to click Create. And there it is. Fancy. So we want to start building things up. And so if you're new to design, or if, and again, this is not a design, necessarily a graphic design assignment. It's geared to teach you the tools to be able to do your own layouts and see some of the other features that Photoshop is capable of. With that, take a look at some of the other resources that I put online on our Blackboard course material. And there's really good information, good YouTube videos on composition, color, layout, and that kind of thing. Again, it's just to introduce us to new things. Knowing composition, knowing layout will make you a better photographer. And if you are a graphic designer, then great. Then you're already used to this, and I expect big things from you. Anyway, let's get started. So first thing is we have a blank canvas. For me, I like to start loading things in and chunking things together. So I may not have an exact layout in mind. Now I do pencil sketches. That way I can get a rough idea of what I'm going to be doing, and I highly recommend that for you as well. But in the absence of a pencil sketch, we'll go ahead and put the elements together, and that way we can kind of start to see how things might shape out. And so first things first, let's change the background from white to a solid color. Now we can do it on the background because we want it to be non-destructive. That's our whole MO. But here it's a background. If you just put a solid color, it's no big deal if you change it. So I'm going to click on this blue here just to double check. Sounds good. It looks similar to what we had in the previous. And so I'm going to do is Edit, Fill. I'm going to fill with the foreground color, normal 100%, and bam. Okay. Now, it does help if you have a layout in mind and you put together the assets that you want. So what I did was, in my assets folder, I have a logo, and you can download a logo if you're doing a product or service that doesn't belong to you, you can download a logo most likely online. And that's the the one situation where I'm okay with you guys using something you took from the internet. If you're doing a product and it's not your own product, you need to shoot that product. You cannot use anything from the internet in your own product, in your own advertisement. Okay, so I have this logo here. I have some information. I typed it in ahead of time so that way I already knew what I wanted, so I can just copy and paste any of this information here into my layout. And I'll show you guys how to do that. And basically then I have just an image here. So this is that stack of toffee that we're going to put in here. And so we'll use that as well. Okay, so I kind of pre-laid out things so it doesn't hurt to kind of prep things, so it makes life a lot easier when you're actually doing your layout. Okay, so let's go back to Photoshop. And let's say, I don't know, the first thing, let's put in some text. So we'll introduce you to the type tool. So I do have some text here. Open that up. Okay. And so some of the text I forgot to type in. But that's fine. We'll do it this way. The type tool, the letter T for type. It's this tool right here. You can see it on the left-hand side here. And as we use the type tool, let me introduce you some of the options associated with the type tool. And so at the top here, we've got our font, we have our font style, we have our size, and we have anti-aliasing, which you can leave at default. We have our justification, whether it's aligned on the left side, middle, or right, and we have the type color. And so we'll get into this later and this later as well. And so the first thing I want to do is type something in. Now when I type something in, I click in the middle, it's going to give me a little bar here. You can't really see the bar, there it is. Okay, and so what it's doing is, notice that there's a little dot there, and it's super hard to see even on this. Little dot right in the middle, that means it's aligning to the right. So if I type some text, first thing I need to do is, because it's a blue background, it picked up the blue as the color. So if I type something, nothing happens because you can't see it. So let me change this to white. So you click on that swatch. Let me take a step back. Click on this swatch here. It'll open up and you can pick whatever color you'd like. Do that before you edit or type in the text. That way it comes through. It's a little bit more of a pain to do it afterwards. And so change the color initially. So let's go ahead and type something. So we'll use that same. All right. And we had that going on there. So once you've typed in the text, you can click the check mark or hit the, if you hit the return, it's going to put it on a new line. So we're just going to hit the check mark, and now that commits to that text. So now we have this, right? But if we look at our other image, that's not the font that we chose. So let's go ahead and pick the font. So up here is where we'll choose the font that we want. So a little tip, if you're searching for the right font to make it look the way you want it, you can just highlight the text here and use the up and down arrows. Now they're not working for me. You can use the up and down arrows, there it goes, to see which font works best for you. Now if it's falling off the screen like this, you can always change the size. So you can always go up here and change the font. Now one thing to know is fonts are a system entity, which means you don't install the fonts in Photoshop, you install the fonts on your system, whether you're on a Mac or PC. And I'll put together something to show you how to install the fonts on a Mac and a PC. But if you don't have a font here, it's because it's not in your system. Now the fonts you see here will definitely be different than ones you have on your own machine. There is a website called dafont, dafont.com, where you can go in and download a bunch of fonts that may work for you. And I'll provide a link for that as well. And so anyway, You go through here and you have all kinds, or at least I do, have all kinds of fonts that I can choose from. Now I already know which one I want to use, so I'm going to go ahead and use this one. Now obviously it's flowing off the screen, but I do want it to be this big. I'm going to just select the text here. So what I did, sorry, it keeps scrolling off the page. So if I want to edit the text, I've changed the font. I can change the style here if there is a style, but change the font size if I need to. So I can make that, type in a new number, 60, and I can make it fit. Okay, I gotta fix that. And one moment, that works. Cool. All right, so here, if it's too big, I can go ahead and click on the text here. Now you want to make sure you click on the text, not outside of it, because if you click outside, it says make a new type layer. So it'll fill it with this, it's called Greek text. It's just gibberish, but you probably don't want that. So click on the layer, the type on screen with the type tool, and you put the little cursor where you want it. And here it happened to be, you know, right in front of the is. So I'm going to hit return on the keyboard, and now it puts it on a new line. So if you need multiple lines, that's one way to do it. I'll show you a different way as we move forward. So hit the check mark. Now that's a little small for what I want, so I'm going to put it back to that 80 points, and that's probably good enough for now. Now you don't have to fine-tune things, you know, right off the bat. Get it in there, you know, put it in there, and then you can actually just start changing sizes and positions and all that stuff once all the elements are in place. Okay, so now we have that piece. Let's go ahead and grab some other text. So here, let's grab this. So each one of these, I'm just going to click on the screen. See, it comes in with that default text here. And it came with the previous font that I had, which is totally fine. I'm going to do it, edit, paste. So all I did was just pasted that text I copied into this file, into this type layer. Click check. Now I definitely want to change the size and the font. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one, which is my font. So this is the font, okay, and this is the font style here. So this font has a few different styles. I'm going to choose this one. And not all fonts have multiple styles. It all depends on the font itself. But I do know that 80 points here is way too big. So I don't recall what I used previously, so let's do like 36 or 38. That might still be too big. Now if you click on this little arrow here, you will see preset numbers. You don't have to stick with those. You can go ahead and change it by just, if I wanted it to be 25 points, just type in 25 and then hit return and it becomes that size. So you have a lot of flexibility with that. Let's put in some more text. Again, I'm just blocking things in just so that we have stuff to play with. Okay, so here we just block it in, pick a font later. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention. I do want you to take a look at some of the typography videos. There's two main types of fonts, sans serif and serif fonts. And so you want to, number one, keep your fonts to a minimum. Just because you have 1,000 fonts doesn't mean that all 1,000 should be on one page. You definitely want to only keep probably 2, maximum 3 fonts on any layout. That's just a good rule of thumb. It's a good design tip. And so here I have this font here, which is more of a serif font or a script font. And this one, which is sans serif, which means, let me find a serif font, a better one, so that I can point out to you what I'm talking about. No, yeah, that'll work. Okay. Okay, so what is the difference between sans serif and serif? These little deals right here, these little tails, the little things that protrude off the edges of the font, those are called serifs. Sans serif means without serifs. So basically this font here, like that M, like this M has this little serif, this M does not. So it's sans serif or without serifs. So that's really a big difference. So what I like to do is I like to have multiple fonts, 2 fonts maximum, but one has a serif and one has sans serif, because that way it provides some nice contrast with the layout. And that's the goal, is you want to draw people's attention to the different areas of the type. So you want to keep that contrast in mind when you're putting together your layout. So I don't need this type layer here. So just like any other layer, which is in our layers palette now, and you can tell a type layer because it's got the T associated with it. And so I'm just going to drag that to the trash. Perfect. Okay, good. So now let's go back to our type or text here. I'm going to do an edit copy. And now what I want to do is create what's called a type box. And so basically what we've done so far is created type layers, and if we needed multiple lines, we just hit return and then made a new line. Here it's just a single line, so that works out fine. But in this situation here with this text, I have multiple lines that I want to put in one box. I don't want to have to type it in or paste it in, hit return and whatnot. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and put it in one type box. The way you do that is instead of just clicking on the screen to create a solid or a single layer, I'm going to click and drag. Just like you were doing with the marquee tool, we click and drag. Again, it gives us this Greek text. We go edit, paste, and it'll replace all that text. Now, the reason why we don't see all those other lines is because something called leading, which is the space in between the lines, is too large. So I'm going to click the check here. And now this is our character palette. So I'm going to click on this. I said we were coming back to this palette here. You can also choose fonts. So click on this. If you don't see that for some reason, you don't remember the name, go under the window menu and look for character. Okay, so this gives us all that information. It gives us the font style, the size, and this here is called the leading. So you can see it's 72. It's really large. Now you can set it to auto, which will give you what it thinks is the best spacing, or you can go ahead and create your own number here. So if I went to 25, actually, why did I only do that part? That's where, oh, you know what? I have spaces in between here. That's the other reason. And I was looking at this one. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these spaces so that they're all together. So just to kind of flip over here, notice I have spaces in between. And so when I copied it over, it actually copied those spaces as well. I'm going to delete that space and this space. Oops, wrong number. Okay, it's a little challenging on this background to see that little cursor. There it is. Cool. Again, hit the check mark to commit to it. And so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and set that to auto again. It does a pretty good job, but I think I want more space. So let's go to 30. Okay, 30. How about 40? There it goes. That's better. 40 seems to be pretty good. Now the font is a little large, but we'll go ahead and come back to it. And I do know for this layout, I don't want it to be center justified. And so center justified means it equally balanced on either side. All the text is lined up down the middle here. You can see it's all lined up down the middle. Easy way to fix that. At the very top here, we have this, this, and this. Left justified, center justified, which is now active, and right justified. So if I click left, notice all the type lines up on the left-hand side. So if I'm putting it to the left-hand side, that works out well. If I want to go right justified, you can line it up to the right-hand side. So it all depends on your layout and what you're trying to do visually. So we'll go ahead and left justify that for now. And let's see, what else do we need? We need some extra text. So I know I want to use this font, and so I'm going to type in Toffee, keeping in line with our previous layout. Now, if it comes off a little to the left or right or whatever, use the Move tool. They're just layers, and they act just like other layers, meaning you have blending modes, opacities. If for some reason you wanted to lower the opacity of this one, you just change the opacity in the layers palette. Now again, I don't want this font. I want to choose a different font. If you don't have the type tool active, which is this one, you can always change the font and the spacing and all that and the size in the character palette. It's 6 of one, half dozen the other. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick that Clipper script font that I had before. That size is probably okay. We'll leave it at that for now. And so far so good. We have our basic text layout in place. So what I'm going to do now is I'll go ahead, and because this video is a little on the lengthy side, I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and we'll pick up in the next video. Stay tuned.